world is changing fast. New technologies are impacting how we think about products, services, and the way we live our lives. Nowhere is this trend more present than in financial services, where new business models and customer expectations are changing our conceptions about banking, finance, and the very nature of money. Welcome to Rebank, a visionary podcast about banking, fintech, and the future. The future of banking is here.
Hello and welcome to Rebank. I'm your host, Will Beeson. Today we're joined by two guests. Darren Fell is the founder and CEO of Crunch, one of the UK's leading cloud-based accounting platforms, specializing in supporting small business customers. Lav Odorovic is the CEO of Penta, a Berlin-based digital-only SME banking startup. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe on iTunes, connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or on our website, www.bankingthefuture.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. Please welcome Darren Fell and Lav Odorovic. Darren and Lav, welcome to Rebank.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
I'm delighted to have the two of you here today to discuss a common problem that you're addressing from two different angles: financial management for small businesses. Maybe we can quickly outline the work you each do and then get into the bigger picture. Darren, maybe you can kick us off. Tell us a bit about Crunch.
Crunch was born out of my frustration with accountants that I personally had. And after one startup, Pure360, which was an email marketing system, I was approached by ex-HMRC and an accountant who had a fairly big practice in Brighton with an idea to revolutionize the software for micro businesses. Now that quickly captured my imagination, and I put the other component in, a cloud accountant and a cloud account manager in with our own software. So this started back in 2007, sold my first business, Pure360, in 2008, and off I started with a whole accountancy revolution, of which when we launched in 2009, the accountants hated me for. So Crunch is your first true cloud accountant with those main components: a cloud accountant available for unlimited usage, a cloud account manager, and a whole very easy to use system designed specifically for the micros, with a whole ecosystem of products all fully integrated in there, which appear as Crunch.
Wow, so cloud accounting as far back as 2009, you guys were ahead of your time.
Apparently we were so ahead of our time that the whole accountancy race hated our guts for doing it, and changing the pricing point for limited company accountancy in the UK, which is roughly around about £2,500, and we came out at £700.
Well, clearly the industry is coming around now, and in fact, I think they'd better. Otherwise, they'll get left behind. I'm sure we'll get into that.
We certainly will.
Lav, Penta is a digital bank for businesses. What's wrong with business banking in your view, and what is Penta doing to address that?
So I just first also want to outline that we had a similar start. So it was Penta is a team of tech entrepreneurs, and even though we lived in different countries and worked together, we always hated our banks. So many things were wrong and we thought that it's just about us, it's just us who see this wrong. But then when we start talking to each other and start talking even to other people, we realize that it's not only us, and it's a big problem that's actually holding businesses back. So after joining a startup bootcamp, we've done a very thorough customer development. So we've spoken with 100 businesses face to face and outlined many problems. So many of them we were not even aware of, us being a tech entrepreneurs. But we may have a chance to go deeper into this later, but I would point out only three main ones that we're trying to solve with our MVP. So the first one is sign up. It's an awful experience. Just to give you an example, at a startup bootcamp, us being super legitimate, easy to deal with, company that gets money from VCs, so very easy on the bank side. We spent 5 weeks trying to open bank account and failed miserably. So we ended up opening ourselves a bank account. So the first problem, sign up. Second problem, user interface. And many people will say that's not such a big problem. And, it may not be the most beautiful one you see, but it works. However, what we found out from cooperating with let's say, high street banks is that number 2 or number 3 on the list of the calls they get to their support centers is user actually asking, how do we use this feature? Where do we find this? It just doesn't work. And then finally, the reason why we started doing this is because we believed that there is an entire amazing fintech ecosystem of both applications and services that are very, very much needed, and that they're just not accessible through traditional bank accounts. So we've seen that all of us, including many other people we spoke with, had on average 3 to 7 additional apps to more or less upgrade their ancient banking accounts. So those are the problems we see, and those are exact problems we're addressing in Penta.
Darren, you interact with thousands of small businesses at Crunch. Do you agree with Lav's view of the business banking market, that there are fundamental shortcomings in onboarding and customer experience, and similar that kind of broader banking financial services solution is a bit fragmented?
Pretty much, absolutely. I think the fragmentation part is the one that is most interesting, that I'm most aligned with. I think banking as a whole needs to be dramatically improved, but it's that fragmentation that I've looked at in the business. And if I may, I'll go back to what I've done here at Crunch, because customers don't have time these days to go looking for all these different solutions to plug together just to make it work for their business. And there's so many things in today's technology services and actual real world services like banking that forces the end customer to go on this big mystery hunt to finally get all of the pieces to make it work for their business. So 2 years ago, I decided that I'd put a full ecosystem around Crunch's accounting customers for all the issues they actually had. So we're very much customer led, and the one that kept coming back was the most obvious one. Darren, I can't get a mortgage with the bank I've been with since I was at college. I'm now a micro business, I'm now a freelancer, I'm now a contractor, I've got 1 year's worth of books. What the hell? Why won't my bank give me a mortgage? So we had numerous partners fitting all of these services, financial services, insurance, and mortgages. And we thought, let's test this. And this is really playing to Lav's fragmentation piece. Let's test the brand equity and do a properly built product to support the mortgages side. So we found a business that's been running 26 years locally, was a professional white label mortgage outfit that works for Uswitch and other major partners. We showed them what Crunch was all about, our big vision about bringing ecosystems together under one single brand to make it easy for end customers. And we launched last April. We have the brokers sitting in-house. They have 600 lenders. We have 3 specific self-employed lenders in there. And whereas I'd had other partners over the years before who may have got a handful of mortgages every year, day one we launched, we had 143 leads flow through. The brokers were astounded with the uptake of it. So we've gone on to launch Crunch Insurance, our own insurance, handcrafted for micro businesses through Lloyd's of London, through syndicates in Lloyd's of London. And again, on the financial services, the investments and pensions piece, we've teamed up with a chap called Guy Miles, who set up Octopus Investments, an amazing character, and he wanted to do a Crunch-like version for investments and pensions delivered over video for every type of person, individual and micro business. So his team sits in with the Crunch team under Crunch Investments and Pensions. Now, my dream would be to bring banking into that framework and therefore end what I see as an incredibly fragmented process for the end customer.
Sounds like it makes perfect sense, given that micro businesses, a lot of these small businesses we're talking about are, as you say, in many cases, contractors, freelancers. their needs are effectively a blend of traditional retail customer needs, i.e. mortgages, investments, pensions like you're talking about, and traditional business products. And it doesn't sound like previously there's been a tailored financial services provider that's looking to fulfill both of those needs.
No, exactly. There hasn't.
And presumably as we move toward an increasingly, call it gig style economy with more people acting as contractors, freelancers, the need for this will continue to grow.
It's going to grow massively. We've become so passionate about this space. We can see all the figures, and there's 5.5 million micro businesses in the UK. The trend is we're almost going to hockey stick growth. We've got all of these services in the gig economy, which we'd actually call nano earners because they're earning small amounts of money, but they may progress into true sole traders, true micro businesses. This whole area is the start of how everybody perceives work. It's a complete change in thinking about how people conduct themselves and earn money. And the greatest statistic we've actually seen is in the US, where they reckon by 2020, 50% of the workforce will be freelance. They may not all be full-time, some will be part-time, but 1 in every 2 will actually be working in this new mode, and that is the future.
Was this part of the vision back in 2007 when you started building Crunch?
Well, I'd have to be a super bright guy, Will, wouldn't I, to have predicted this? It wasn't. I wouldn't say it's part of the vision. It was just relying on my gut feeling that big corporates would be downsizing and using contingent workforces to be flexible. That was just this gut feeling that everything would go more to a freelancing, more to a flexible route. And the bizarre thing was that it all started happening as we were putting Crunch together. As I was doing the due diligence for the sale of Pure 360, there was a downturn in the world's economy, and lots of people being made redundant. So some people were being forced to go freelance. Other people were thinking, actually, I don't want to go and work for a big corporate. It's not safe anymore. It's not a job for life. I want to be flexible myself. So right at the beginning, right at that time we were putting it together, things started to become apparent that this world was going that way. What's happening now is amazing proof to us that the gut feeling was right. You should always trust your gut.
Lav, Crunch's success seems to be a clear indication of businesses' interest in looking to new, smart solutions to traditional tasks like banking and accounting. What will differentiate Penta from traditional business banking offerings?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, Will, may I just very quickly ask a question to Darren? Because we find this topic as well very, very interesting and one of the key parts of our offering in the future. So Darren, how do you see a relationship between Crunch and the banks in future, and how important you think this will be? Just to outline, I'm referring to this the fact that all the information you actually do and keep in your accounting software is basically duplicated in a bank account. So there seems to be a lot of thinking going on that in future accounting and banking might actually come very close to each other and in a way either compete or very, very closely work together.
Yeah, no, I think they should be connected. They really should. It's the most obvious thing for me. So, and it's as Will knows with our numerous conversations, for me it's the final piece in the puzzle of an ecosystem that will help support both individual and the micro business. It should be connected. It really should. It shouldn't be fragmented off. Because you're right, there's so much similar information between the two parts, the banking and the accounting side. If you have connectivity and a free flow, what could you actually do? On the lending, you could give almost instantaneous lending because you can see exactly how successful that business is. If they're not successful, then the lending is less or not so. So I think they should be utterly connected. And my dream has always been to find a bank to connect into the ecosystem to stop it being so fragmented.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked this question is just basically going to be a part of my answer as well. So I couldn't agree more. And I just want to point out some of our competitors in Germany are actually agreeing with this view. They're also targeting, let's say, freelancers, and they're basically integrating from the ground up in one company accounting software and the banking app. However, we also don't see this as Penta has taken another approach, and this is what actually differentiates us from the let's say other challenger banks, and there are not so many of them, also to be clear, compared to the retail
Can you
space.
name those real quick?
But
some of those people in Germany you're talking
yes. So Holvi is already out there. It has been acquired from BBVA. Then also there is a new contender just coming out. They're called Contest. And both of them are targeting freelancers, and they basically either built on their own accounting system or they're very closely integrating with one of them. However, Penta has a similar approach to Crunch. That's what I wanted to point out. And we believe that there isn't a one solution fit all for accounting. And accounting is definitely, at least in the next year or 2 or 3, the driving force from the banking integrations, and also for the usability and making lives easier for the customers. So the approach we are taking is actually slightly different. So we understand that our customers, even though we focus on high-tech companies below 2 million euros in revenue, but just slightly bigger than freelancers, right? So approximately 3 to 30 employees. And we see and understand that even this subgroup will have different needs for different accounting softwares over time. And we want to be the facilitating side that's actually going to connect to many of them, instead of picking their horse and just saying, this is it, please use it. So while this makes sense for freelancers, this doesn't really make sense for just slightly larger businesses that need this flexibility and also want to have ability to choose. So we were now talking just about the accounting. So the same principle can be applied to anything else. So we see the vision of fintech developing really, really quickly. It's already clear that it's far better than traditional offering from the banks, right? So there are 2 problems with them reaching the market. One is a high cost of acquiring. So basically switch costs are high. People don't have time to look for products. They don't even know what they need. They don't even know that industry has developed so quickly. And another one is onboarding process, so KYC and compliance. So we see Penta's role in future to do these 2 things, to acquire a user and to do the KYC and onboarding. And what will happen from then on, we will share this with all the great fintech, both services and apps. So when we say service, we could say, let's say, international transfer, something similar to TransferWise or something else. And when we say app, we mean, let's say, accounting software. Although the accounting software inherently with its abilities fits both categories. That's how we want to be different. So we want to integrate the best ones and not really tell our customer that this is the choice they need to make.
I think you guys have both touched on a really fundamental point, and perhaps not surprisingly, the reason I was interested in getting both of you on a show together, this kind of integration or drive toward integration of accounting systems and banking systems. I think traditionally, an accounting system was a ledger, was a book that businesses kept records in. From time to time, they'd have communications with banks, and at the end of the year, they would draw up accounts. Over time, banks have continued to operate on a batch processing basis, and largely accounts have been drawn up quarterly or annually. And I think increasingly, as we're moving from batch-based to real-time processing, both at the bank level and at the accounting system level, we're getting toward that blur between what's banking and what's accounting, and thinking about some of the power that comes out of integration. The question I would have for you guys, what are the technological challenges of integrating banking and accounting platforms? Darren, I know you've given some thought to that in the past. Is it a difficult challenge? Is it something that's relatively easy to approach?
Well, integrating with banks is all led by the bank's desire to integrate. And in the UK, Lav, I'm sure you're in Germany and Europe, as in the continent, is a lot easier. There's a lot more openness in connectivity. In the UK, I've been met with a complete antiness to spend the time on projects to connect, to integrate with accounting. So that's why we find systems like Yodlee, which we don't agree with, which use screen scraping technology, and you have to give your banking details into the system to scrape off the statement data into the accounting system. So all the biggest solutions in the world tend to use that form of screen scraping technology. Now, as you probably can guess, it doesn't comply with the terms and conditions of almost every single bank account. And if the end users' banks are compromised, then the banks won't support them in any recovery of any money. So with an accountancy hat on, we have a duty of care for our customers. So we don't use that system. We only connect to banks that want to be connected with in a secure and direct way. And that has not been an easy process in the UK. So we've only just connected with Barclays, and we've been using another service called BankStream to connect to some other banks. We've got Metro Bank connected and Cater Allen, which is owned by Santander. But yeah, it's all led by that desire, Will, to want to connect and what's in it for them. If you change the conversation to one where if you have a feed from our customers, you can easily sell in factoring, which we may not necessarily agree with either. In many cases it's good, in many cases it's bad. If you approach it from a product selling route with the banks, then they are far more eager to have that conversation. But with the new EU rules coming out to actually provide more open connectivity to the banks, we're hoping the UK banks will be more willing to come to the table.
Lav, what's your experience been approaching incumbent banks or other incumbent financial services organizations and thinking about integration?
Yeah. So I think first that there is a lot about setup. So I've recently read in a study that 87% of managers in banks think that their systems are not good enough to sustain the current challenges. They have very old core systems, and they've been putting layers and layers on top of them since 60s up to today. So whenever you want to integrate something, you have to go through so many layers, and this is extremely expensive, time-consuming, and so on. That's I think the situation with let's say high street banks, and then we have challenger banks that just freshly built their infrastructure, and they have far easier job to integrate. But I think we with Penta even went one step further, because we built our IT infrastructure exclusively on third-party solutions, so exclusively on APIs. And we've designed it in a way that it's basically very, very easy to integrate and disintegrate different offering. So on the technical side, I think we plan to ride this wave and actually be in a good position for being able to integrate. But my worries are more on the other side, and that is that not even, of course, I'm not here talking about Crunch, which is obviously, I think, doing a really, really good job in this area. But many, let's say in Germany, many traditional players, accounting players that have a dominant market share, they are not really understanding how what future brings, and they're not even interested to integrate, even if that would be very, very easy and bring a lot of help to their customers. So I want here just to spread a word and say to any accounting provider in the world, or at least in Europe where we can cover, because we're able to serve customers throughout the EU, at least until the hard Brexit happens. This also includes UK. So we really invite and encourage everyone to really try to think and connect with everyone else. So I think it's more the barrier on the thinking side and on the strategy and positioning and people being afraid. I think the biggest problem why banks won't integrate with accounting software is not that they're just hiding away behind this like term policies and so on. I think that the real reason is that they've seen that people spend much more time in platforms like Crunch that get all the user attention. The user are actually going to see how to run their business, and less in the web apps or other mobile apps of the banks itself. So this is actually the big reason why they don't want to integrate. Everything else is just an excuse.
You guys have both touched on the relevance of APIs and impending EU legislation like PSD2. openness is a two-way street, though. It sounds like both of you are looking for connections from supportive incumbent institutions, banks predominantly. Presumably, a part of the work that you guys are doing and will do in the future involves incorporating other third-party components in ways that can better service your customers, even at the expense, Lav, of customers spending all of their time interfacing with Penta, or Darren, in your case, with Crunch. How do you think about that two-way street, and what kind of elements of customer touch and customer engagement are you willing to give up in order to drive openness?
I can start if that's okay. So we at Penta don't look at this at all like that. So we only put one priority, and that is what actually works best for the user. So in case of really complex accounting softwares, we don't even think for 1 second that we want to integrate that software inside a Penta app. So we are very clear, and it makes a lot of sense. User will connect to the accounting software, and our job as a bank is to make it easy for the accounting software and integrate in the most optimal way, so we can save number of minutes and clicks that our users need to do when they do banking. We see and understand that this is the only way to go to the future, and this is now just like some transition period where, you know, the big banks have to realize that they might have to lose some market share because of this. So we take that approach. With some other softwares, it makes sense because, you know, it's very easy, and we integrate it straight away into the Penta app. But it's also, accounting is very, very important, but there's going to be so many other things that really have a real need to integrate with your bank account. For example, your CRM softwares, your many different, like some small ERPs, they all want to connect to the banking software. They can all read and use this information and help businesses make better decisions every day because of it. And it's everyone's job to make this happen, and not to really think about the current market share they have.
I mean, our philosophy on everything is led exactly the same level as you, is by the customer view. I want to give them every extra minute in the day to do what they're brilliant at, and not worry about the administration for their business, or having to check, or go into multiple systems and bank accounts and other things to check things. So my ultimate dream is to have what we call a single UX interface, single interface for all parts of the business. Now that's obviously a very massive dream to fulfill, but why not? Why not have everything for that micro business in one place? Obviously, it does need a very open thinking bank to allow their interface to appear in a common interface. But that for me is the future, just sheer simplicity, and the easier we make it, as you said, with clicks, reducing clicks and everything for the end user, the better they can get on with what they're actually good at, and not in the administration of their business. So all-in-one UX interface is our dream.
What does pricing and monetization look like in some of these new open models? Darren, I believe you guys operate a subscription model as opposed to traditional accountants or accounting systems. Can you talk a bit about the way you expect pricing and monetization more broadly to develop in a world where we're looking at increasing integration of banking and accounting and potentially some other financial and business management components as well?
Sure. I mean, it's a subscription for us we were probably the first in the UK as a true cloud accountant to come out with £64.50. In fact, no, actually, we came out with £59.50 for a full all-inclusive service. So your year-end, your VAT, your every unlimited advice. And that's worked incredibly well for us to create an incredibly stable business, not needing any venture capital to build it. And it only just now are we going out for a proper investment. So subscription has been amazing for us. So you just have to understand that some customers will cost you thousands and thousands of pounds because they'll be on the phone a lot and need a lot of hand-holding and help. But the majority will work with easy to understand systems and get on with what they're brilliant at. That's the accounting side. You'd hope on banking side that you might have a subscription model as well. Now we fight in the UK against against free banking, but then again, is it really free? You only have to make slight mistakes in using your bank account and going to unprepared overdrafts, and suddenly the costs are far higher than a low monthly fee would be for a properly integrated bank. So subscription, I think, is the way forward, which will reduce the actual running costs, I think, overall.
Lav, how do you guys think about pricing and monetization?
Yeah. So us as a customer-centric bank for high-tech companies, the first thing we did is we went on and talked to customers. So what do they expect? And we learned two things. First is that there is a huge problem with transparency with banks. And the smaller you are, the bigger the problem is. So just to give you an example for transparency, we've asked one of our great interns to call 30 most major banks in Germany and ask all of them, if I'm to open a bank account with you today, what would be the FX for me selling 10,000 euros and buying pounds? Not a single bank, 3 weeks after several emails, pushed through several different numbers to call, holding on lines, writing emails, everything else. We couldn't get a single answer. They just cannot answer a question like this. It's like make an order and then you'll see the end result. So this is something customers really, really have problem with. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg. Then the second problem is the bundling. So banks think they know what users need, and they make these bundles and basically make them buy it. And I know in UK there is a lot of this, that a lot of banks are offering free service for 6 or 12 months. But this still doesn't solve the problem, because after this you have to start using this like bundles of stuff that you don't really use. So based on these two, we have designed our pricing system that we call pay as you grow. So we understand that we need to monetize from the day one. So we are not one of those fintechs that think it's all about acquiring the largest number of capital, spending the VC money, and then hoping that once you start charging it, that they will not go away. We actually want to start monetizing from the day one, and we will do this by, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but we will even give to everyone a free bank account. However, this free bank account will be very, very limited. So if you just open your company and you are only making like few trades a month, it's probably fine for you. However, as soon as you start doing more than that, you can pick and choose different, we call it banklets. So maybe look at them as modules. And then when you have modules, let's say to connect to accounting software, you have module to buy more transactions, you have modules to send money abroad, you have different options, and then you only pick and choose those that you really want, and that's super transparent as well. So that's our view, and it's also supported also with how we provide the services, because it's not actually Penta that's providing the services, it's the third-party providers that are doing it, and in a mid to long run, we would even like to see more of them actually competing for our customers and offering them services at lower cost, better time, more convenience, and so on and so forth.
That's a really innovative model, Lav. I love the thinking there, because we effectively are building in our freemium start point for Crunch as we get ready for a new brand launch, I think sort of September time. But I love the style of adding modules on you need, and then you start paying money, which fits with a very, very software-led sale that people are very, very used to now.
Exactly, yes.
Good.
I want to leave the last words to you guys. Maybe Lav, you can go first. I'd be curious to hear, broadly speaking, as you project forward over the next 5 to 10 years, what does banking and financial services look like for small businesses?
Okay, so first, generally, banking is an industry. We see it's developing in two directions. One is companies being really great at providing the user interface and user experience layer. So something where Penta will compete. And then on the other side, companies really, or banks, better to say, really being great at providing vertical products. So, it's going to be more and more about transparency. It's going to be more and more about comparability. And it's going to be more and more about people being able to execute and offer great products with a lot of great effects that customer actually want, the way they want it. And they will, it's going to be less and less of hiding behind, the huge amount of customers and their stickiness to the offering. And when we talk about small businesses as our focus group, we see accounting as extremely important factor. We see this business intelligence, so that banks also need to help, not only with connecting with accounting softwares and services, but also providing an easier way for customers to collect, all the information that they need to hand over. So from scanning the receipts to maybe even some very, very light form of invoicing for the customers that are still using the traditional accounting offering, which doesn't provide them this. We will see from then on banking systems really integrating with anything you can imagine. Why not even if you make an Excel and you're doing some calculation on your business account, why wouldn't you be able to call your bank account and have read-only access to your files? So we see the future really going there and hope to facilitate this as much as we can.
Darren, what do you think?
It's such an exciting time now. I cannot wait to see all of these challenger banks coming out and really starting to release some amazing products, particularly for the micro businesses. They're obviously going into retail first. It's the obvious route. I'm very interested to talk with you, Lav, about what you're doing with Penta. For me, the world is all merging now, and there's things that we haven't discussed. With innovative, and it sounds strange to put this in the same sentence, tax authorities actually making tax digital, like HMRC. So we, right from the beginning, because of our fintech built into the accountancy firm, all as one, HMRC have always been intrigued at all of our innovations, like real-time information on the payroll, one of the first to do that. And we're one of the 14 selected software firms in the UK to connect people to instant and easy ways to understand their tax situation live, as our accounting system does, their tax makeup live. So making tax digital will merge into accounting systems, and hopefully we see these challenger banks merge into the ecosystem as well, to make it just so ridiculously easy to run business and it not seem like a quagmire of a magical mystery tour going from supplier to supplier just to get all the components you need to run your business successfully. My hope is also that, as we've done, is that many businesses won't lose sight of the experts, which I don't believe can ever be replaced by artificial intelligence. Our belief is expert plus technology plus this ecosystem in all the component parts will make the end user's life amazingly simple, so they can get out to do the job of earning money for them and their family.
You guys paint the picture of a wonderful future. Very much look forward to getting there. Lav, what's the best way for people to find out more about Penta and connect with you directly?
Yes, so we invite everyone to they're really interested in what we are doing to visit www.getpenta.com. And they can leave us their email. We actually have a thriving community of people who are not only subscribing and waiting for our service to go live, but also actively getting their role in shaping our product. So we work a lot with our future customers to help us shape how the product's going to look like, what functions we're going to put, how the debit card's going to look, many other exciting things, and we really need the support. So please come to getpenta.com and let's make the bank we actually need for the future.
Great. And to get in touch with you, you're active on Twitter, right?
Yes, I'm active on Twitter. And there is also a Get Penta account on Twitter, which is even more active than mine.
And Darren, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, the website is crunch.co.uk, spelled normally crunch.co.uk. So that's the main address. And anybody wanting to get hold of me can just go into the info at Crunch and asked for Helen, my assistant. So that's Hellen. So Helen Ward always directs. There's so many interesting things going on out in the world, as we've been discussing today. So anybody wanting to chat to me or help Crunch grow the future for micro businesses, then please do get in touch.
Well, just to add, it's really no secret of my personal email. So it's lav@getpenta.com, and I really encourage anyone interested in the topic, anyone being a fintech solution provider who thinks that what Penta is doing actually makes sense and wants to integrate with us and them, whatever it is, be it a customer who is just interested to talk and discuss and to be shown what we're actually doing. Very happy to get engaged directly as well.
Great. Lav Odorovic and Darren Fell, thank you very much for joining us today.
No problem at all. Thank you, Will, for doing this.
Thank you for inviting us, and it was a really pleasant talk.
Thanks for tuning into Rebank. If you like today's show, reach out. Follow us on Twitter at Rebank Podcast and join the conversation. For more on banking, fintech, and the future, check out our regular content at www.bankingthefuture.com.